Virgin Australia and the former head of the ACCC have joined a growing chorus of concern over the Albanese government's decision to deny Qatar Airways more flights into the country. The move has baffled the tourism industry, which had been crying out for more international airline capacity to put downward pressure on high airfares. Joining me now live is the CEO of Flight Centre, Graham Turne. Graham, thank you so much for joining us. What's your reaction to Qatar flights being blocked in the first place?
Well, look, it was inexplicable. Qatar was one of those airlines, of course, that continued flying into Australia all over the COVID lockdown and border closure period, bringing in essential supplies and freight and that sort of thing. And you know, we know there was some issues in Doha with the women that were inappropriately examined, but that was a police matter. And so the government blocking these extra flights when we desperately need more capacity into Australia was, it was inexplicable. And the explanation, obviously, from the Minister King, just does not stack up.
We've heard from the former head of the ACCC. Virgin Australia is also now voicing concerns. Is this what's needed, though, to bring the prices down, to create more competition? Is this really the only way forward?
For international fares, I can't see any other option. We're still only at about 75 to 78% of pre-COVID capacity. Some of the Chinese carriers are starting to come back in, and that will ease things up. You can get some pretty good airfares at the moment, but they're fairly limited in availability. So it's really what the average person is paying that counts, and it is significantly more expensive. Yeah, probably our figures are on the average fare to, say, Europe or the UK is about 33 to 40% more expensive than it was pre-COVID. So that's a tough ask, particularly for lower income people who are going overseas to visit relatives, or people coming in, tourists coming in here to see Australia. So, you know, a lot of people have been affected negatively, and I think it's a real shame. We need this capacity.
Well, that's quite a price increase, 40%. The federal government is still yet to actually provide an explanation or a reason as to why it has blocked Qatar from increasing flights. Does it at least owe the public and customers an explanation?
Yes, well, you know, Catherine King has made some statements about, and it varies every time she talks. Generally, the interest, travel and airports and tourism interest, I believe that this comes from above her head, probably from the PM himself, that he's made an executive decision on this. But we certainly should hear, if there is a rational reason, we'd love to hear it. It is inexplicable as far as we're concerned. Do
you think it's got something to do with prioritising Qantas flights over international carriers?
Look, possibly, but and I don't blame Qantas or Emirates for lobbying to keep Qatar out. You know, they're a very strong competitor, and we work well with Emirates and Qantas. You know, we give them more than $3 billion worth of flights. So, you know, I can't blame Qantas for it, but there's no doubt that they are beneficiaries of this decision.
I know you mentioned before how Qatar has been criticised in the past over its treatment of women, and of course there were 5 Australian women on a flight in 2020 who were horrendously treated by the airline. Does that, though, in a way justify this decision?
Look, that was a Qatari police activity. And I really don't think you can blame the airline for this, for Qatar. They had nothing to do with it. So I don't think you can. And if you are making standards and statements like that, you know, Australia will you will lose half the airlines flying into us if you're worried about some of the activities of the home governments. That's my feeling anyway.
Let's move on now. I want to ask you about Qantas because the national carrier has been hit with a class action lawsuit from customers who had flights cancelled following the COVID outbreak. Graham, they're seeking refunds, they're seeking compensation. How do you see this playing out?
Look, it's very difficult to see what will happen. I mean, obviously our organisation, as much as Qantas, we've had to refund billions of dollars over the last couple of years. And Qantas, I think, genuinely has tried to make sure that this does work. The refunds and the frequent flyer points can get used by people. There's been a lot of advertising in that. So I do feel some sympathy for them that they're getting having a class action against them for this. And I suspect that they'll be doing everything they can to make sure their customers do get refunds or some sort of satisfaction in terms of flights and that. But it is quite a difficult thing because, remember the government basically shut Qantas down for a long time, closed our borders. So this is the consequence of that. And the government should have realised that this was one of the things that was going to happen. But now it's up to Qantas for sure and the rest of the industry to try to make sure that people both can get their refunds or get flights in lieu of refund or frequent flyer points.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Graham Turne, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.